Download and extract the ch7partA zip file. I recommend creating a new folder, ch7, in your GIS folder on your OneDrive. Launch ArcMap and open the ch7partA MXD map document. Switch to Data View. You should see 4 lines, 1 vertical line and 3 horizontal lines. The horizontal lines are dangles that need to be corrected. The top 2 horizontal lines are undershoots, while the bottom line is an overshoot. To correct these lines, you first need to display the editing toolbar. Right-click on any toolbar button and pick Editor from the list of toolbars. Before you can make any changes, you need to start an editing session. Pick the Editor drop-down button and pick Start Editing. Using the black arrow, select the top horizontal line. Click the Edit Vertices button from the Editor toolbar. Select the left endpoint of the line. While holding your left mouse button in, drag it all the way to the vertical line. Then click off of the line to finish the edit. On the Editor toolbar, choose More Editing Tools and Advanced Editing to open the Advanced Editing toolbar. Select the vertical line, pick the Extend tool, and select the second undershoot line. This time we'll switch to the Trim tool. With our vertical line selected, we'll pick the horizontal line that overshoots, completing that exercise. Save your edits, and let's stop editing with the Editor toolbar. Next, activate the midpoint data frame by right-clicking it from the table of contents and picking Activate. Now, start an editing session. You should see a single vertical line. We want to draw a horizontal line 50 meters long perpendicular to the existing line, starting at its midpoint. From the Create Features palette, pick Line. On the Editor toolbar, use the drop-down arrow to reveal the Midpoint tool. Remember to view the tooltips display if you're not sure which button to pick. Pick one endpoint of the vertical line and then the other. Your new line is started from the exact midpoint of that line. Now right-click with your mouse and pick Direction and Length. Enter 0 for direction and 50 for length. Right-click and pick Finish Sketch. Turn off the Midpoint tool by selecting the straight segment from the Editor toolbar. Use the endpoint snaps to create another line to close the top half of the triangle. Right-click and pick Finish Sketch. Repeat the process to create the line that closes the bottom half of the triangle. When you finish that line, right-click and pick Finish Sketch. Next, we'll add a feature that includes 2 line segments. Pick the lower endpoint of the vertical line to place your first vertex. Use the Midpoint tool to place the next vertex on the midpoint of the horizontal line. Pick the Straight Segment tool to turn off the Midpoint tool and pick the upper endpoint of the vertical line. Right-click and pick Finish Sketch. We will add another 2-segment feature using the same points, except this time the midpoint between the left end of the horizontal line and the vertex of our last triangle. Right-click and pick Stop Editing, save your edits. Next, activate the Distance Direction data frame. You should see a single vertical line. Start an editing session. Pick the line from the Create Features palette. In this case, we want the line to start 10 units to the right of the upper endpoint of the existing line. The Direction Distance tool will help us place our first vertex. From the Editor toolbar, pick Direction Distance tool. Click the upper endpoint of the vertical line. Press D on the keyboard. Type 0 for direction and press Enter. Pick the upper endpoint of the vertical line again and drag outward to see a circle. Press D on the keyboard and type 10 for distance. Now you have two options, the left of the line or the right of the line. Pick the cyan dot to the right of the vertical line. This placed your first vertex. To place the next one, right-click and choose Direction Distance. Enter 270 for direction and 50 for distance. Press Enter. Right-click and pick Finish Sketch to complete your line. Repeat those steps to add 4 more lines, 15, 20, 25, and 30 meter spacing between them. From the editor toolbar, pick Stop Editing and Save Edits when you're done. Activate the Editing Vertices data frame from the table of contents. You shouldn't see anything. Start an editing session and pick points from the Create feature palette. Right-click and choose Absolute XY. Enter 5175 and 4950. Press Enter. You should see a point in the left-hand area. Right-click and pick Absolute XY again and enter 5200 and 4960. Press Enter. Repeat and place another point at 5185, 4945. And press the Enter key. Next, we will use the Edit Vertices tool on the Edit toolbar and the Edit Sketch Properties palette to align the last 2 points with the first one in the Y direction. With the black arrow, select the far right point and pick Edit Vertices. And then pick Edit Sketch Properties. Change the Y value to 4950. Repeat this process for the middle point. All 3 points should now be in a straight line. Pick Stop Editing and save your edits from the editing toolbar. Activate the Parallel Perpendicular data frame from the table of contents. You should see a slanted line labeled Street. Start an editing session. We want to place some buildings along the street. Building fronts are usually parallel with streets. Pick polygons from the Create Features palette. Use the direction distance tool. From the endpoint of the slanted line, set the direction to 30 and the distance of 5 to place the first vertex of your building. Select the straight line segment to end the direction distance tool. Right-click on the street and choose Parallel. Move your mouse. Notice the line is constrained to be parallel with the street. Right-click again and choose Length. Type 25 and press Enter. Move your mouse over the street again and right-click and select Perpendicular. Press the Ctrl L key and type 10 for length. Finally, right-click and choose Square and Finish. Now place a 5x5 building right in line using those same tools. I picked Square and Finish. I'm going to add one more building, 10 by 20, in line with the last one. Pick on the Edit Attributes tool. Select the first building and enter the building number as 119 and the building name as Sam's Shoes. Pick the smallest building and enter a building number of 121 and building name Restrooms. Pick on the other building and building number 123 and type McDonald's for the building name. Label the buildings based on that name field. Pick Stop Editing and save your edits. Activate the Shared Boundary Polygons data frame from the table of contents. You should see 4 polygons, which might represent parcels of land. We will use the Autocomplete Polygon tool to create new parcels of land above the sideways L. Start an editing session. From the Create Features palette, choose Polygon. From the Construction Tools, choose Autocomplete Polygon. Pick inside the sideways L on top and use the End to Object Snap to pick the endpoint corner there. Right-click on the edge of the polygon and choose Parallel and use the Length option to enter a length of 12.75. Right-click on the upper edge of the L-shaped parcel and pick Parallel. Right-click and pick Length. Type 22 and press Enter. Use the End Use the end snap to pick the upper right corner of the other sideways L shape polygon. Place the last vertex just inside the polygon and right-click and choose Finish Sketch. We should create one more just to make sure we got it down. Pick inside the lower rectangle near the lower right-hand corner. Use the end snap to pick on the lower right corner. Right-click on the bottom edge and choose Parallel. Right-click again and choose Length. Type 12 and press Enter. Use the end object snap to go to the very upper right corner. Choose the last vertex inside the polygon, right-click and pick Finish Sketch. There's another way to create polygons with shared boundaries. That's to cut them. I find this method very useful when separating large masses into smaller polygons. Select the lower left-hand rectangle. It should be highlighted in cyan. Pick the Cut Polygon tool and select outside the upper right-hand corner. Use the endpoint to select the corner. Go all the way across and select the opposite corner and make the last vertex outside of the point. Right-click and choose Finish Sketch to cut the polygon into two pieces. Repeat the process across the other corners to cut the polygon into another final 4 pieces. Next, let's edit the attributes of the larger parcels to put the owner name Casey, C-A-S-E-Y, for both the large parcels. We can stop editing and save our edits. And let's change our symbols of these polygons. So in the properties of the polygons, choose Categories, Owner Field, Add Value, and pick Casey. All other values will be left alone, so now we can see those two polygons are owned by a different owner. Now we can put all this together to make something useful. Activate the Middle Earth data frame from the table of contents. Expand the data frame and turn on the picture Get Polygons here. We will use the Cut Polygon tool to divide the major landmass into smaller color polygons shown on the Get Polygons Here picture. Let's start with Mordor in the lower right hand corner. It's symbolized in the picture with green. Pick the large landmass to highlight it. Pick the Cut Polygon tool from the Edit toolbar. Pick a point outside the dark black line between Gondor and Mordor in the Bay of Belfalos. Continue sketching along the green border of Mordor. Be sure to place your last vertex outside of the large landmass. Right-click and pick Finish Sketch. Edit the name attribute as you go, determining the information from the picture maps. Repeat that until you have identified all the individual land masses. Use the other picture to create some of the important point locations, such as the Shire and Rivendell. Save your edits often. Go ahead and digitize some of the major rivers as well. When you're completely finished, stop and save your edits and pick on the finished bookmark to create your map. Switch to layout view and add your name and submit the map as a PDF through Blackboard.